Good evening, everyone. We hope you have enjoyed day 2 of the Ontario Coaches Conference. We are thrilled to welcome everyone this evening to today's last session, Making an Impact. A few housekeeping items for you before we get started. This session will run until approximately 8 p.m. You may use the public chat on the right side of your screen to ask questions, and they'll be read out at the end of the presentation. So I see a few people in there already. That's great. I'm going to keep track of your questions for the end. If you have any time you need assistance, you can contact the CAO team by using the chat box in the bottom left corner of your screen. It says contact the CAO. Today's session is being recorded and will be available for viewing within 24 hours from the session tab. We are very privileged to have today's session one of the world's leading figures in human performance, team culture, and leadership, Alistair McCaw. He has been working with numerous Olympians, Paralympians, Grand Slam champions, NCAA colleges, and professional sports teams for over 25 years. He's an author of 3 best-selling books, a sought-after keynote speaker, a former 5-time world champion competitor in the sport of duathlon, and a 29 times marathoner. Please join me in welcoming Alistair McCaw. Over to you, Alistair.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the last 2 days. I believe the conference started yesterday. Of course, I would have loved to have been in Canada for the conference. Of course, it was supposed to happen last year as well. So hopefully we can make that happen one day. But obviously, I've been to Canada. I've been to Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec, and it's just a beautiful country with great people as well. So hopefully that can happen sometime. But of course, I'm very, very honored and privileged to be here with you this evening. I'm very, very happy that we're on the same time zone because some of the conferences I've been doing have been obviously in Australia. I've been to Australia and other parts of the world where I've had to be up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to present those. But super, we're on the same time zone. I'm actually in Miami right now. I'm probably about an hour south of where I live in West Palm Beach. I'm here for the Miami Open, Tennis Open. Of course, you have a lot of players there from Canada here as well. Milos Raonic, Vasek Pospisil, who we practiced with yesterday here. I'm with a South African player called Lloyd Harris. We had a good win yesterday, but it's just very, very interesting. As I was discussing to Eric and Stuart before we went on air here, is being at a sports event, an international sports event, and experiencing the bubble. Of course, we all know that, and maybe there's a lot of you who are on this Zoom or on this call right now who have experienced the bubble. But very, very interesting. Obviously, we cannot go outside of our hotel. We cannot go outside of the site. We can't even mingle with some of the public that are allowed into the tennis stadium as well. Very, very strict. We're being watched on the floors of our hotels. We can't leave. We're getting tests done every 3 days. And of course, it's for our own good. It's for our own safety as well. But all measures are being taken in place. Obviously, social distancing in the restaurant, very, very limited spaces. So it's a very, very interesting experience to be down here with a player at a professional sports event. But it is the way of the world right now. I believe that this time next year, we should be back to normal. I put in air quotes. Of course, a lot of things will change because of the pandemic. Already, you're probably experiencing some of the changes. In fact, I speak to a lot of corporates and I speak to a lot of businesses as well of where these changes will be going. And already we've seen if I can just use the word impact of social media, of platforms such as this, Zoom, Microsoft, etc., of how important they have really become. But tonight's presentation, I'm very, very excited to bring you Making an Impact, Mini Coach, and Few Minute Make an Impact. Now, I've been very privileged to be in the coaching world, in the sports world for over 35 years as an athlete and as a coach as well, coaching probably around about 26, 27 years. Of course, there'll be some of you on this who have coached way, way longer. But the great thing about our industry is that you are always learning. When you stay open-minded, when you're willing to learn each day and from anybody, it just makes our career and what we do so much more impactful. But, something I've discovered as I've gone along in these 25 years is there's a lot of coaches, but how many of us are actually making an impact? And I'd like to present tonight the 7 C's of what it means to make an impact as a coach. But before we go there, I'd like to ask you a question. I'd like you to think back to all the coaches you've had. Now, I know that might be quite difficult throughout your whole career. Maybe just think as when you were maybe younger, as an athlete, whatever sport that may have been. But can you think back to all the coaches you've had? Can you think of a rough number? I'll maybe give you 20 or 30 seconds to think about that. Now, obviously, you probably won't remember the exact number, but can you think of a rough number? That's the most important thing. So my next question is, now out of all those coaches, how many actually made a lasting impact on your life? How many of those coaches actually made an impact on your life? So sitting here today, how many of those people made a difference that you can feel today, that you still think of today? It could have been a line of encouragement, for example. It just could have been the way they cared for you. But how many do you think or do you feel made a difference in your life? Well, I did a study on this around about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was incredibly interesting. I did it on social media. We had over 1,300 that completed the survey. Statistics show that less than 15% of coaches actually make a difference in their students' lives. And if you ask me, that is not good enough. That is too low. I believe that coaching should be a vocation, not a job. In fact, it's a question I ask young coaches who are coming into the industry. I give a lot of coaching workshops now, obviously over a social media platform. But I ask them, here's a question I ask them is, why do you want to coach? And if you're a coach right now, my question to you is, why do you coach? Obviously, besides the obvious of making a paycheck, of paying the bills, the mortgage, the rent, etc., why do you coach? It's probably one of the most important questions. In fact, when I speak to, be it in other industries or sectors, for example, I ask them why they do what they do. Why are you a manager? Why are you in IT? What is it? Because the most successful people and the people who have made an impact on the lives of others have done it because it's a passion and something that they love. But less than 15%, maybe that correlates with what you were thinking as well. So for example, if we were live in a workshop or a conference right now, as in face-to-face in the same room, I would usually ask the audience, how many coaches did you have? How many had an impact? And it proves true that probably it's out of, the number is usually around about 2 out of 10. 2 coaches out of 10 coaches made a difference in my life. If you had more than 2 coaches that made an impact on your life, you're very, very fortunate because you are above average. But my question to you this evening is, are you making an impact on the lives around you, on those that you coach and on your colleagues as well? Because we have an incredible opportunity to do that. So I want to start with the definition of impact. And if this is not a word that sums up coaching for me, then I don't know what is. And I came up with 3 things. It comes from the online dictionary, the definition of impact: to create a significant emotional effect on another human being, to have a memorable or persuasive influence on others, and the third one, the ability to express in a way that leaves a deep, desirable impression on another person. Now, please feel free to take down as many notes as you want. Questions, of course, I know they're being handled by Eric and Stuart. So please, as we go along, if you have questions, send those to them. I think there is a chat box with this platform as well. But this really, really resonated with me of what impact is: an emotional effect on another human being, that's coaching; to have a memorable or persuasive influence on others; and the ability to express in a way that leaves a deep, desirable impression on another person. Now, let me ask you, and there's going to be lots of questions and lots of self-reflection during this presentation, are you making an impact on those you coach? An emotional effect, a persuasive influence, and a desirable impression. So to make an impact on others, you first need to have an influence on them. And one of the biggest mistakes I made in my early career of coaching was thinking that my drills, my skills, maybe the resume of athletes that I'd worked with, for example, already in my early 20s, I was very, very fortunate to work with the world's #1 tennis player at the time and the world's #1 squash player at the time. And I thought it all came down to my who I knew, which is important, but the drills I had, the exercises and the skills I had. But as I've moved along in my coaching career, I've found that it's the influence, it's the relationships which take time, that make the biggest impact on those you work with. It's just like a relationship, for example. If I can use the example of a romantic relationship, it takes time to trust other people. Trust is a massive word in influencing others. So, that was just key for me. I still am learning as I go along in this journey. This is what makes it so exciting for me, is every day I wake up, I'm excited to coach others. I'm excited to get out there and do what we do. Again, I believe it's a vocation. But to make an impact on others, you first need to have an influence on them. And that involves building relationships over a period of time. So let's move on to the 7 C's of making an impact as a coach. Number 1 is character. And your character is related to your values, beliefs, and your behaviors. And again, hopefully you have a pen and paper there right now. Please feel free to take screenshots or whatever it is. I know that this is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to watch this back. But what are your values, beliefs, and behaviors? Not just as a coach, but as a person. Do you have values, beliefs, and behaviors that are documented? And if you don't, very simply write down what your values are, what your beliefs are, and what behaviors you promote. For example, this is one of the first areas I start with when I consult with coaches or I work with specific sports teams, colleges, and corporates around the world, is I want to know these 3 things first. Behaviors can be categorized also as the standards that you have within your organization or within yourself, for example. We know that character comes down to authenticity. And a very interesting article I was reading with Liverpool, which is the football club in England. I know maybe soccer is not as big in Canada as it is obviously in Europe, for example. But they asked what was the key thing behind Jurgen Klopp, who's the head coach, the manager there, if you like. What was the key thing to him having success at Liverpool? They won the league for the first time in 30 years last season and won the Champions League, which is the big soccer trophy for the world, if you want to say. And they said authenticity is that he is the same person you see on camera as he is in the change room, in the office, off the field, on the field, for example. So authenticity is a key element of being a coach. Now, you might see that photo there. Some of you might recognize the gentleman I'm with there. It's a club that I consult to, Glasgow Rangers, who are in Scotland. Again, it's football, but that's Steven Gerrard. He was the England soccer captain, Liverpool captain for a long time, and now is the head coach at Glasgow Rangers. But what I'm taking you through here are some of the things that I share with these kind of people, these type of organizations. And, the word authenticity when it comes to Steven is, I always think of Steven when I think of the word authenticity is that he is the same person when you're sitting with him in the office as you see on TV, for example. Very honest, very direct. He's a coach where, here's the thing about leadership as well, is that a leader always doesn't need to be vocal, loud. He's a very quiet person, but when he speaks, people listen. He really leads by example. Now, I believe there's 2 kinds of coaches, and you'll probably relate with me here. There's coaches that are liked, but not respected, okay? So, that for me, that relates to less discipline, because you can remember back in school, we maybe preferred those teachers that were less strict, less tough. You could get away with more, for example. So they were liked, okay? But they weren't necessarily respected. Now, there's coaches that aren't liked, but they are respected, okay? Those are usually the ones that are high discipline, high standards. They drive very, very high levels of behavior and standards, as I just mentioned. But those were the teachers and coaches I really enjoyed back in school, for example. And I believe that correlates with your upbringing as well. Disciplined kids at practice really come from discipline in the home. Ill-disciplined kids that you have at practice are usually there is ill discipline at home. But the key thing in being a great coach is being liked and respected. Okay, a lot of us just think that respect is the most important thing, but especially as we've moved along today with these generations, and this is something we're going to be getting into this presentation, is the old style, the old school of do as I say, very autocratic style of leadership does not work today like it used to, say, 20 or 30 years ago, where you just say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. These days, with this generation, we have to be obviously respected is important, but liked as well. So, I'm going to be talking about how to connect with this generation better, is that we are no longer speaking to them. So when I was coached as a young kid or taught in school, for example, teachers spoke to you more. They spoke directly at you. As we're now these days, we have to speak with them. They have to be part of the conversation. The next one is that your example is everything. It doesn't matter what you've done, what you've achieved, what you know. Your example comes down to everything of how you are as a person, how you live your lives. In fact, in my first chapter of 7 Keys to Being a Great Coach, my first book, I talk about standards, and there's 3 particular standards. The first one is the standard you hold for yourself. The second one is the standard you hold for your organization. And the third one is the standard you hold for the team members. So again, we're going to be getting into that as well. And then the most important question is, are you to be trusted? Think about any time before you go into a working collaboration, be it in business, be it even as getting back to the example of a romantic relationship, for example, trust is the big factor. And trust is closely linked to your character and your authenticity. Okay, so a very, very important thing to do. For me, that's where it starts. That's why it's obviously number 1 in the 7 C's to making an impact as a coach. Your example is everything, and are you to be trusted? Probably one of the most important questions. Our second one is competence. Of course, we need to have the skills that match the role. I don't know if you've seen that meme or that picture where there's a lot of sheep, and I can't remember what dog it was, but it definitely wasn't a sheepdog. And it was, do your qualifications match the role? Because the sheep are all over the place on the field, and the dog is not a sheepdog. So maybe the dog lied on his or her resume about the position, but it's so important that your skills match the role of what you're doing. Now, something I did in my early career, I actually started in fitness, in the physical side, in performance. One of the things I did when I was very, very young is I was very curious. I am still very curious. I'm still very skeptical. I wanted to know everything about what was going on. I wanted to know about how the physios worked, what they did, the doctors. So, for example, if an athlete was injured, I would want to go along with them to the appointments, to the hospital, whatever it be, and listen in as much as I could, so I could create as much knowledge as I could to become a better trainer, to become a better performance coach. Obviously, throughout the years, I've transitioned more into now leadership, team culture, mindset. But this whole journey of mine has helped me evolve into what I am today. In fact, somebody said the other day, and it made me think, is that my 4 books up until now, and my 5th book will be coming out this year, have evolved throughout my career of what I've done. So from coaching to mindset, which was champion-minded, to team culture, and of course, winning attitude and mindset, which is obviously comes down to your mindset as well. But the first thing in competence is, do the skills match the role? And that, for me, is the entry ticket to any position, is you have to have the skills. Our second one is, of course, the knowledge and experience. And my question to you is, do you have the knowledge and experience within your role to provide the service, the correct service, the best service that you can. What are the areas that you need to improve on? It's important to identify that. It's important to put your pride aside. Something I love to do is ask a lot of questions. I'm very, very curious. It doesn't matter who it is, be it the assistant coach, be it the trainer. So for example, when I go to colleges here in the United States, I will want to spend as much time with the whole team group as possible, spend time with the trainers, spend time with even the transportation, the bus driver, to hear what goes on within the team, the spirit within the bus, the traveling, etc. These are all important factors to creating a great culture. One thing I've always believed with is surrounding yourself with better. If you want to become better, you need to surround yourself with better. So my question to you right now is, the environment that you're in, is it making you better? Okay, are you being pushed? Are you being challenged? Are you learning more and more every day? Because if it isn't, it's something to really consider. Are you getting better where you are right now, or are you comfortable? Because I know every single person that's on this presentation tonight, or who's attending the Ontario Coaches Conference, wants to get better. All right, you're investing in yourself. You're taking the time right now, maybe away from other work or from family or dinner, whatever it may be, to invest in yourself to get better. In fact, the subtitle of my first book, 7 Keys to Being a Great Coach, is Become Your Best and They Will Too. Because to make your athletes better, or people around you, you need to make yourself better first. Now, of course, we know that in competence, it's about decision-making skills as well. And Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker who lives about 25 minutes from me up in West Palm Beach here, has a quote that says, the difference between successful and unsuccessful people comes down to decision-making skills. Okay, it's how quick can you come up with solutions. Unsuccessful people spend time on complaining, blaming about the problem, that it's unfair, all these things. As where successful people are making decisions quicker. They're coming up with solutions quicker. Great coaches, great managers come up with solutions quicker. And our last one in competence is continuous learning and curiosity. And so that's something I do continually. I'm always skeptical. I want to know answers. In fact, some of the best athletes I've worked with are exactly this. They're students of their sport. They're continually learning. They're continually curious. They ask a lot of questions. And I encourage you today, if you're wanting to get better, be continually learning and staying curious. Ask a lot of questions. Connection. All right. So before we get on to our points, these are 2 players I've worked with in the past. Ramy Ashour, who's the world #1 in squash for some time, probably one of the most talented and gifted athletes I've ever worked with. And at the bottom there, Kevin Anderson, who I actually saw today. He's a player I worked with between 2014 and 2018, highest ranking 5 in the world. He's had wins over Roger Federer at Wimbledon from 2 sets to love down. And he's also a finalist, a Grand Slam finalist in the US Open 2017 or 18, I think it is. And also a finalist at Wimbledon against Novak Djokovic. But these are 2 players I've worked with. And the points that I'm going to be going through here will relate to these 2 pictures as well. The first one is research your athlete. And this is something I've done, of course, today. It's a lot easier with all the social media platforms and YouTube, etc., to get to know your athletes a little bit better. Yes, even junior athletes are all over social media, Instagram. They run their own accounts, or on YouTube, for example. But before I start working with a team, or I start working with an athlete, I research them as much as possible. I want to know what their favorite food is. I want to know what their lifestyle looks like, who their family is, how many brothers or sisters they have, what their hobbies is, what they love to do. That when I meet them, we already hit the ground running. There's a commonality, okay, than just sitting across a table and talking about their specific sport. The human connection is the most important thing in coaching. I'll say it again. The human connection is the most important thing in coaching. It's about the person not the player. Remember, you're not coaching a sport, you're coaching a person who plays the sport. I'll say that again. You're not coaching a sport, you're coaching a person who plays the sport. And you'll relate with this because you might be coaching basketball, hockey, whatever it may be, but you've got, let's say in your squad, for example, you have 20 athletes in your squad. Those are 20 different personalities. Those are 20 different people that come from maybe different cultures, different beliefs. How much research are you doing on this? Because the most success I've gained in working with athletes and teams has come from research, knowing the athlete, knowing the team. It's important to find commonalities. So, for example, one of the athletes I worked with, an Australian, I found out that he loved racing cars, what food he loved to eat. And of course, our first meeting, I said to him, hey, why don't we go out for some Thai food? And he said, Thai is my favorite food. And, obviously I'd done my research. I don't tell them, but, there's already commonalities where, gee, I like this guy. He likes the same food as me, or we get talking about cars. Now, I might not particularly like cars or painting or art or some particular music, but I know to connect with that particular person, I have to find commonalities, okay? And again, it's all about staying open-minded. Now, I believe that less is more. And what does that mean? Is one of the biggest mistakes I believe coaches make is they come into a new team, a new role, or working with a new athlete, and they're trying to offlay all the information they know. They're trying to show all their skills, all their knowledge. Yes, they're trying to make a great first impression. And for me, that is a massive, massive mistake. In fact, I'm just going to take an example because I'm on the professional tennis tour right now with a player. Is coaches that come on the tour and new coaches, and they start working with a player, and you can see in the first session or the first week, they're trying to change everything. They're trying to change grips. They're trying to change this and that. That is a recipe for disaster. In the beginning, working with a team or working with the player, saying less is better. Listen, observe, take notes, get to know the people, okay? People as I mean the individuals. Like Clive Woodward, the great rugby coach, said, a great team is made up of great individuals. Get to know the individuals first. Now, because they will already know what your background is, what your resume is, etc. You don't need to prove that. But they will become very, very curious of you, and they'll ask you more questions. I think there's a great, is it from Tao? I might be saying that incorrectly, but when the student is ready, the master will appear. Okay, and the same thing applies in coaching, is that when the student is ready to listen, then that is when we should speak up as a coach. Again, when you're going in there and you're trying to, show all your skills and all your knowledge, etc., that information can become very, very detrimental to the relationship because it's just too much. So in the beginning, especially, less is more, say less. Understand that building a relationship takes time. It's something that can't be fast-tracked. And, successful relationships that have longevity, on my podcast, Champion Minded, I've had some fantastic guests there. One was Bill Bauman, who was Michael Phelps' longtime coach. And we spoke about the relationship that he built with Michael over those many, many years. Of course, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of our time, started with Bob. When Michael was 9 years old, and the relationship developed over time. Now, you might relate to this as well. Is that some relationships can start off rocky, but over time they become better and better, and they become a lifetime relationship. For example, it's about learning each other. That's the most important essence of building relationships, understanding each other better. And then here's a massive one. And I'm going to show you a survey that I did. It's just later on in this presentation. A sense of humor is massive in making connections. Yes, we all have different senses of humor. But in coaching and making a connection, we all have to be around funny, fun people, people with good energy, positivity. Smiling is also a great coaching tool as well, instead of looking serious the whole time. But a sense of humor is massive. Now, while we're on that point, is understand that sarcasm is not humor. Okay? Coaches, if you're using sarcasm and you think it's funny, believe me, I was at a college, just as an example, of course, last year not, but the year before, what happened to 2020. And one of the questions I asked the athletes, I have one-on-one meetings, it was at a very, very famous basketball university. And I asked them what to give some of the qualities of the coach they had and the things they didn't like. And over 80% spoke about he's a fantastic coach, very skilled, very knowledgeable, very motivating. However, what we don't like is that he can be very sarcastic. So, for example, you run slower than my 5-year-old daughter, for example, and we think that might be funny, but coaches, sarcasm is the lowest form of humor. Okay, so let's just be careful on that one. Number 4, confidence is massive, because if they don't believe, if you don't believe in yourself, they won't believe in you. Now, we spoke about at our very first slide, being authentic is important, being yourself. Because after a while, just like any other relationship, you get to know who the real person is. So my best advice is bring the best version of yourself. And the more you invest in yourself, the more you work in yourself, self-development, the more better person you become, and the more authentic you become as well. You're not always going to get it right, but, like you're doing right now, you're spending time investing and working on yourself. Self-awareness is a massive thing. One of the best ways of self-awareness is through self-reflection. If you want to improve yourself, not only as a person, or should I say, not only as a coach, but as a person, a high level of self-awareness is important. And one of the areas that I really work on myself is self-reflection. I ask myself 3 questions at the end of each day. Is number 1, what did I do well today? Number 2, what could I have done better today? And number 3, who did I make better today? Because of course, what I do, coaching, consulting, leadership, it's not about me. It's about the people that I'm interacting with, etc. For example, yourself, or the athlete I was with and the coaching team with today. So those are 3 questions I asked myself. What did I do well today? What could I have done better today? And who did I make better today? Those are 3 questions that have helped me along my journey to become a better person. Great coaches are calm under adversity and pressure. Remember that your athletes are looking to you. Understand that your body language matters. Your facial expressions matter. A lot of times I've had athletes come to me and say, I've got a great coach, but they always look so worried on the sidelines. They always look so concerned. And, here we are as coaches telling the athletes to go out there, compete hard, have fun, but we look as stressed as anything. So that's something important that to take on board is, how do you look when you coach? If we were to put a camera on you during a match or a race or an event, what would you see? Would you see a confident coach, or would you see a worried coach? Would you see emotions going through a roller coaster, for example? Again, being open to learning from anyone. In fact, I've learned from people that have not even been 6 months in the coaching industry. When we're open to it, we can learn from absolutely anyone. And trust me when I say this, there's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something, either about the industry or about myself. And that's why I love what we do. And then, of course, being open to change. One of the sayings that I always love, it's the things that hold back organizations and people, is that we've always done it this way, right? That's a very, very closed-minded attitude or approach. Is we've always done it this way, or last season it worked, so we'll just do it this season, for example. So my question to you is, are you open to change? Good. A great leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. And that's from General Douglas MacArthur, one of my favorite quotes. Perfect. Moving along nicely. Number 5 of the 7 C's of making an impact is care. A great coach puts the person before the player, right? And that is why it's so important to get to know them, to research them, to listen to them, to understand them, to build up that relationship. Because at the end of the day, people don't care how much you know. They only care, people don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care, all right? Sorry if I messed up that quote. The second one is that you provide a healthy environment, a learning environment, a positive environment, teamwork, all these things. Again, getting back to your values, what you stand for in building a healthy environment. A great coach listens well. In fact, the more and more I go in throughout my coaching journey, the more I keep quiet and the more I really listen to what the athlete has to say. In fact, a perfect example probably happened half an hour before we went on to this presentation was from the athlete I'm working here with now. A little bit of a problem. He called me here in the hotel room and he was explaining it to me. And I just wanted to give my answer so quick. And I said to myself, Alistair, just listen, let him finish. And as he continued to speak, my answer, my perception, my opinion changed. If I'd have jumped in early in that conversation to give my answer or to give my opinion, I would have probably made a drastic mistake. So listen, as I like to say, zip it up, keep quiet, and let the person you're speaking to finish. Because for me, this is where you learn more about the person and about the situation. Being compassionate is very, very important. You know, the good old my way or the highway does not work these days. And of course, telling the truth is probably one of the most important things as well to build trust as a coach. So those are the 5 things under care. Putting the person before the player. They want to know you care. Provide a healthy environment. Listen well, compassionate, and they tell the truth. Great quote from John Wooden, of course, you know him, the UCLA legendary basketball coach. Seek opportunities to show you care. The smallest gestures often make the biggest difference. Look for those winning moments. Now, this is something I first heard from a good friend of mine. He was the Manchester United performance coach. He's now with the Wales national team. And he spoke about looking for those winning moments. And what does he mean by that? That is the moments you get to spend with a player away from practice. It could be on the car ride to a tournament, a practice, or the way back. It could be in the parking lot, for example, but connecting with that person. You know, asking them how their brother or sister is doing, asking them how their parents are doing, all these small little things. This is, in fact, one of the things Sir Alex Ferguson, legendary soccer coach from Manchester United, why he was so successful, because he looked for the winning moments of getting to connect with individuals more. And, you know, I encourage you to look for those winning moments when you maybe see a player or an athlete by themselves, sitting by themselves in the stands, or, you know, they're waiting for the bus, offering them a ride, whatever it may be. These are the moments that you get to connect with your players more. Empower them, see them not as they are, but rather for who they can become. Now, quick question for you. He is a tennis player. I know if there's any tennis coaches on this right now, you will know him. You will probably know him. But, you know, as a kid, he was told he was too overweight. He didn't have the skills. He wasn't focused enough. And today is Nick Kyrgios. Now, obviously, Nick is very eccentric. He does some crazy things. I can tell you that he's one of the most popular players at tournaments because of his personality. But that is what Nick looked like when he was 12. And, of course, he's a phenomenal athlete today. Love or hate his behaviors. Our second one is somebody who went on to win 5 gold medals in rowing, for Great Britain. She started as her sister was the great athlete in the team. She was always compared to her sister. She was called clumsy. She tried different sports, was no good. One afternoon, she went rowing, which is this historic picture right here, and she liked it. And she eventually went on to compete in 5 Olympics. Frances Houghton, She has a great book as well. I think it's called Learnings from 5 Olympics. But there was someone who was put in different sports, didn't do well, didn't like it, was compared. And by the way, coaches, never compare athletes to others, never compare siblings to others. You know, for example, oh, your sister, your brother does it much better, or be like your brother, or be like that other person. That is not effective coaching. And of course, you might recognize this young man. He went on to become one of the greatest soccer players of all time, still is, arguably with Ronaldo, is Lionel Messi. He was told he was too small. He was told he was too thin. He was told he wouldn't make it. And understand that these 3 examples that we've gone through now came from coaches that believed in their students. Okay, so empower them, see them not who they as they are, but rather for who they can become. Do you know what the 4 most powerful words are in coaching, or actually in life? Simple. I believe in you. Every single human being needs to hear those 4 words. I believe in you. Number 6, they need to be credible. Credibility equals trust. Of course, we talk about the importance of integrity, honesty, words that match actions, and being reliable as a coach. And, you know, I know we're very limited for time here, so excuse me if I'm rushing through this last part, but I want to get through this. But on my podcast, Champion Minded, I had Phil Neville, who's in this picture here with Sir Alex Ferguson, talking about the credibility of Sir Alex. In fact, he has a great book called Leading Sir Alex Ferguson, and he talks about the importance of being credible, the integrity, the honesty. You know, he always said, I wanted to know why I was dropped from the team. I wanted to know what I was doing wrong. I'd rather have the brutal honesty than just being dropped from the team for not knowing any reasons why. So, you know, coaches, to become a great leader, to become a great coaches, you need to learn how to have the hard conversations. If I can give you one tip, the hard conversations are easier when you have a better relationship with the individual. I'll say it again. The hard conversations become easier when you have a better relationship with the individual. And our final one is they are committed. They are athlete-centered, not just all about themselves. They are positive. They're supportive. They're willing to go the extra mile, and also through the good and bad times. And obviously, we all know that the sports world is a roller coaster. There's going to be the good and the bad times, but they need you now more than ever, especially with the last 12 months, how challenging it's been with COVID, etc. is have you been there for them? You know, this, hopefully, and we're still in this, is that you're showing your commitment to your athlete, to your team, because this is really a good time to prove that, for example. But are you positive? Are you supportive? Are you willing to go the extra mile for your athlete and your team? So just a little recap of the 7 C's to being an impact coach: character, competence, connection, confidence, care, being credible, and of course, being committed, which is more through your actions than through your words. Good. Now, impacting this generation, which is a massive one, understand they don't respond well to autocratic leadership. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, the do as I say form of autocratic leadership. It doesn't work with this generation today. We need to speak with them and not at them. They love variety because they're easily distracted. And we just have to look at their social media, for example, of how faster social media platforms have become for them. We went from Facebook to Twitter, to Instagram, to Snapchat, to TikTok. All these, do you see the commonality or the trend? They get faster, the information. So they love a lot of variety. We need to include that in our coaching. Understand that this generation, they collaborate well together. They collaborate well better than we did. In fact, my generation, X generation, for example, 70s and 80s, we had the saying of, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And this is definitely not this generation. They like to work together. No long lectures. You will lose them. They're connected digitally, but disconnected socially. So their social skills are a little bit less. Understand they don't need us for information because they have something called Google. All right. And, you know, it's funny is that they will double check you of what your answer was. And we need to understand, you know, we spoke about likability and respectability. There's a great TED talk from Rita Pearson, and it's about kids don't learn from people they don't like. And the same for coaching. Kids don't learn from coaches they don't like. Check out this TED talk. It's one of my favorite ones. It's only 8 minutes. It's from Rita Pearson. And that is so true. People don't learn from people they don't like. So we spoke about the importance of being respected and being likable as a coach. So as I mentioned from my book, 7 Keys to Being a Great Coach, those are the 7 keys. Whoops, my bad. Those are the 7 keys of being a great coach: standards, method, adapt, energy, interpersonal skills, fundamentals, and investing. And I'm just going to have a look at the first one, the setting your standards. Set your standards from day one. This is very, very important. Your team members must know what is acceptable and what isn't. Explain the why behind these standards. Include team members in the process of designing your standards. And I always like to say standards over rules, because rules is more of a autocratic dictatorship, so to say. You know, if you were to walk into the room and someone says to you, right, those are the rules on the wall, that's what you need to abide by, you wouldn't have as much a buy-in. I believe standards creates more of a buy-in from the group. Include them in setting up your standards, for example. But very, very important is that before an athlete or a team member joins your team, they're very clear on what the standards are from day one, what's acceptable and what isn't. 5 standouts I've discovered in the very best coaches and leaders is they lead by example. They're simply good human beings, so I can get back to authenticity. They have great interpersonal skills to get along with people very well. They're continually learning, and they have a high emotional intelligence. They have a high understanding of themselves, and they have a high understanding of others. They're compassionate. They have empathy. And this is a massive, massive area that I've been working on in the last 2 to 3 years myself. In fact, a good book on emotional intelligence is by Travis Bradbury. It's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Check that book out if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Top 3 traits athletes look for in a coach. Excuse me, let me just take a sip of water here. And this was based off a survey I performed in 2017 with 124 athletes in a variety of 18 sports. I gave them 10 things to choose from, and these were the top 3 things that came out of these 124 athletes. A coach who isn't too critical or negative. The second one was a coach who had a great energy and sense of humor. There's that word, sense of humor again. And the top one, of course, is a coach who believed and really cared in me. So those were the top 3 things from a survey I did with athletes on what mattered to them. Very, very interesting. Of course, that sense of humor one was pretty interesting to me as well. A quick story with Coach K. Some of you might recognize Coach K from Duke basketball. I do some consulting at Duke as well. And I was sitting in his office one afternoon. I asked Coach, you've been at Duke for over 41 seasons. What has been the key to your longevity and your success? In fact, Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, great books as well, is 72 this year, I think. I've got to check that again. Yes, he's in his 70s. And I asked him, Coach, amongst other things we were talking about, what is the key to your longevity as a coach, a successful coach of 42 seasons? And he said, Alistair, it's not just the key to coaching, it's the key to life: adaptability. Being able to adapt to situations, being able to adapt to change. It's the key, not just to coaching, it's the key to life. You know, he pointed to the corner of the room, his office. It was under the bleachers of the stadium. He keeps an open door the whole time. Players walk in and out and ask questions. And he said, Alistair, have a look over there at that cabinet. And the cabinet had the past 41 seasons of Duke basketball. And he said, no matter if we had won the championship or not, or how great our season was, you will discover that not one of those programs is the same. He says, you know, the attitude of, yes, we had a winning season last season, let's just do it again this season, the same thing, copy paste. He said, here's the thing, Alistair, is that everything is about change. He says the sport might stay the same, but the players change. What I did with Grant Hill, who was, of course, a great basketball player at Phoenix Suns, etc., I can't do with Zion Williamson, okay, who plays at the Pelicans today. He said, I have to adapt to the players in the team, to their style. I have to adapt to the daily behaviors, the daily moods, for example. And there was just something that really, really resonated with me, is the importance of adaptability. Good. Almost at our last slide. The people who are thriving the most today are those who are adapting and open to change. Okay, and my question to you is, are you open to change? Are you open-minded? Are you adapting? Especially with COVID has offered us massive challenges in being adaptable, because of course we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, for example. So 2 questions I have for you. I ask all coaches this. How do you define success as a coach? Okay. This is not something you're going to be able to answer super quick now. And how do you define success in your life? I believe those are 2 of the most important questions, because if I was to say who wants to be successful, all the hands will go up in the room. But then I ask them, how do you define success? So I'd encourage you, even if there's only 2 questions that you answer tonight or from this presentation, is how do you define success as a coach? And how do you define success in your life? Because once you become clear on the answers of those 2 questions, it will help your path towards becoming a more successful coach and becoming a more successful person, husband, boyfriend, father, mother, etc. Okay, my 10 rules of success. I don't think we have a lot of time to obviously go through those, because I need a little bit of time for questions as well. But I'll have you have a look at those, my 10 rules of success. Have a vision and purpose. Do what you love. Of course, coaching should be a vocation. Stay open-minded. Add value to the lives of others. Choose the right environment and people. Develop a winning attitude and mindset. Build and nurture relationships. Practice gratitude and humility. Always be learning, and appreciate the moments, because in all honesty, life is fast. It goes very, very fast. We've got to appreciate the moments more. Good. There's just some contact points for you if you would like to reach out or get connected. On Twitter, Instagram, there's my website. All books available on Amazon.com. Also Amazon, obviously, up in Canada as well. My Facebook page, and of course my podcast, where I have a lot of successful coaches, a lot of things there from athletes as well, top athletes. World #1 golfer Luke Donald was on there. So some really, really interesting people. Champion Minded is on YouTube, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, and what other platform was it on? It's on most platforms. It's not on Spotify, unfortunately. Awesome. Time to take some questions.
Alistair, thank you so much for this presentation. It's really awesome. Everyone, you can throw your questions in the chat, and I have a couple here. I'll start off right away. One theme that really, I drew out from your presentation was this idea of coaching the person who plays the sport versus coaching the sport. And you talked about it again in another slide, coaching the person before the player. Where did this philosophy come from? Did this come from your time as an athlete, as a coach, something else?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, being on the other side of being an athlete and learning. Obviously, I didn't know when I was a kid of 15 that I would be a coach one day or I'd be in the industry. But, going back to what coaches I remember, what teachers I remember, I came from a very highly disciplined home from my parents. So I gravitated towards the coaches and teachers who were very strict, very disciplined. I knew that they were going to make me better, for example. But I would say it definitely came from the background of of my younger years of being an athlete, of the coaches I remember cared for me. They pushed me, they challenged me. I didn't always like it. I'm sure a lot of the people on here right now can relate to that as well, is that you maybe didn't like the coaches and teachers back then, but you realized that they actually cared. They made you better. We can say they were on your back the whole time. I would get worried about, and I say this to athletes, get worried about coaches who are not on your back. They're not challenging you. They're not pushing you. You're not always going to like your coach, but that's what we're there to do. We're there to push and challenge our athletes, obviously in an ethical way and a safe way and a healthy way is very, very important. So I would say it came from there.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Another question here, is there one of the two of these, I know all the C's are important, but is there one of the two that come first or sort of take priority at the start of a new coaching experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's almost like choosing one of your favorite kids, right? I would say number one, character, because it's who you are as a person. We are a continuous project. Every single day you wake up, you get to choose your attitude and mindset. You get to choose the person you're going to be. And again, getting back to how to improve yourself as a person, self-awareness and self-reflection. Those three questions I ask myself: what did I do good today? What could I have done better? That could have been a conversation I had with the receptionist downstairs this afternoon, where I thought maybe, you know what, Alistair, you were a little bit rude. You didn't wait for your turn or something. Good. Then I'm recognizing what I should be doing to become a better person. So character. Am I becoming a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? Okay. I think every single person that's on here wants to become that. The second one I'd say would be care. As I said before, care is about discipline. Care is about tough love. Care is about not always being liked, but being, not always being liked, but being respected. And care, of course, comes over time. So care and character.
That's a great answer, and we have a lot of people in chat liking those answers you gave in terms of calling out character as an important one. Here's a question.
I wish I was up there in Canada right now. I really do. I was really bummed that we couldn't make it in person.
Hopefully, we'll get you up here for a future event. I have a question here from Larry Taylor. Have you come across a coach, come across a player which you felt you couldn't coach? And I guess I'll put another sort of phrasing on that in terms of how do you change or work with someone who's not so open to change themselves?
Yeah, obviously it's very different if you're in a position where, if you're a school coach or you work for somebody else, you can't always choose who you want to work with. If you're an independent coach, you can get to choose who you work with. So, there's obviously a lot of different scenarios here with the coaches we have on here. Some will be school coaches, some will work in an academy club, some will be volunteers. But, it's almost asking yourself the question, why am I not connecting with this person? What am I not seeing? And of course, research, understanding why this person is the way they are. Why don't they like you, or why are they uncoachable, for example? Now, Michael Boyle, you might know him. He's massive in the hockey world, worked with the Boston Bruins. For me, he's the number one strength and conditioning coach in the world. Michael Boyle, check him out on Instagram and Twitter. Even though he's not a fan, he's, that's where you're able to connect with him. He worked with Boston Bruins. He worked with the Red Sox, etc. And it was a question I asked him on the podcast, on the Champion Minded podcast. What do you do when you work with a kid that's ill-disciplined, that's, and then the parents come to you and say, discipline my child. And it's almost impossible if there's ill discipline in the home. It all starts in the home with regards behaviors, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. But as a coach, it's important. Getting back to, what I spoke to on one of the slides is your session is your session. Set your standards. What is acceptable? What's not acceptable? You might be allowed to do that at home, but here it's not going to happen. Also, one more thing is understand that not everybody is a fit. I haven't connected with all the athletes I've worked with and vice versa. And that's fine. Sometimes you're just not a fit for somebody else, no matter how good you are, no matter how experienced you are. I've had athletes leave me. I've had to leave athletes, and that's just the industry we're in.
Thanks, Alistair. I think we'll give you two more here, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's one you might not get too often. This is actually coming from an athlete. We have a couple athletes in the session today. So thinking about their side of this relationship, what contributions should an athlete make to the relationship with a coach?
Great question. Wow, I've never had that in a coaching conference. So thanks for that. I love people that challenge me. Thanks so much for that question. I think respect is the most important thing. Understand that your coach is trying. They're doing their best. They want the best for you. They're not always going to get it right. No one knows yourself better than yourself. So some of the athletes that I've had a lot of success with is they've been more mature athletes, like Kevin Anderson, the tennis player, for example, is that, they help them become a better player by providing a lot of feedback, by asking questions. There's a great line in the old movie by Tom Cruise, Jerry Maguire. And there's that scene where I think he's in the locker room with the athlete he's working with, and he says to him in desperation, help me help you. Help me help you. He's basically saying to the athlete, tell me what's going on. Give me feedback. Tell me what you're thinking so I can help you. So as an athlete, that's probably one of the best things, is provide feedback to your coach as possible.
I love that answer. That's great. Okay, so I'll give you the last one I got here. And what do you find is the hardest part of connecting with younger generations, or sort of applying your 7 C's to younger generations, and any tips that come out of that?
We all come from a different set of values. We all come from a different, different beliefs, different background, discipline, standards, etc. So, for me, it has to be the most challenging thing today. I don't want to call it a job, is being a parent. Dealing with the challenge of social media and electronics and so on and so forth. But as a coach and as an adult, we need to understand their world better. We need to understand how they connect. We need to understand how they learn. And we need to meet them there as well, of what platforms they are. Things are moving so fast, like we have WhatsApp groups, and now there's a new chat thing, I believe, and WhatsApp is getting old-fashioned. We as coaches, no matter how old we are, and parents, we need to move along with these trends and understand them, because this is their world. This is how they're connecting right now. And if you're sending emails to your team for communication, unless of course it's something once in a while or whatever that's more substantial that you can't write it on a text, this generation don't read emails anymore. I mean, Facebook is even too much information. So the biggest thing is connect with how this generation are thinking, responding, socializing, interacting. All these things are very, very important. This is one of two things I'm investing heavily in, is emotional intelligence and generational codes. Understanding the generations that are coming through, how they think, and me trying to adapt to them as much as possible.
Wow, that's a great answer. So thank you again, everyone. Make sure to connect with Alistair on all the sort of formats he's listed before there, and I definitely recommend the podcast.
Sure. There we go.
Yeah, that's great. So thanks for attending, everyone. The next session of OCC 21 takes place tomorrow at noon with former NHL hockey coach Ted Nolan. Be sure to check out the networking tab on the left menu. You could head there right after here and start meeting with some people, or keep talking about this session. You can send a private message, all that sort of thing. Okay, so thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Thanks, Alistair, and we'll see you all hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.